December 15 comes. December 15 was a Sunday, and at this time I was attending Tony's church. Go to Tony's church, but this particular Sunday, Tony and her husband were out of town preaching. So we had like campus pastors that were preaching, and they had this thing called a 7-minute sermon where it was like 3 or 4 of them that were preaching for 7 minutes, and they would like take turns. So I get to church, and honestly, y'all, that Sunday service, I honestly believe God was really moving and trying to get my attention, also trying to give me reassurance about what was going on. So one of the pastors, or campus pastors, he is on stage and he talks about faith. Talks about faith and how he gives his own story of how he was living in another state. He was living in North Carolina, and God told him to move to Atlanta. And once he got that word, they prayed over it. They believed God told him, his wife, and they had a 1-year-old at the time, to move to Atlanta. He started applying to jobs in Atlanta. And he was applying. His major was accounting. So he applied to this accounting firm. He made it to the last round, and he wholeheartedly believed he was going to get the job. Back in North Carolina, he had packed up all his stuff. Him and his wife, they packed up all their stuffs. Their family did this farewell. They already gave the 60-day notice to the apartment complex that they're moving out. Y'all, as soon as they packed all their stuffs and they were going to be in Atlanta the week before, he gets a call from the accounting firm, and they told him that they are not going to give him an offer and that they moved on with other candidates. So y'all, when I heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is this is similar to, what I'm going through. So he says he panicked because at this point he already packed up all him and his wife. They packed up all their stuff. They already told their family they're moving to family and friends that they're moving to Atlanta. Already gave the apartment complex the notice. What are they gonna do? So they contemplated, and they decided to actually take the move to Atlanta. They get to Atlanta, and he's working at Starbucks. He's like a manager, right? So he's like, gotta do what I gotta do. He's a manager at Starbucks, and they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Buckhead. Now, mind you, this was 2018, 2017, right, when this happened. And their 1-year-old's bedroom was like their closet or something like that. He said that they were barely getting by, barely. And a couple months into them living in the apartment flooded. And at this point, he was just like, what is this, right? So the apartment flooded, but because the apartment flooded so bad, the apartment complex said that they were going to move them into a 2-bedroom. So now he kind of got like anxious because he's like, I can't afford a 2-bedroom. So he's like, if we go to a 2-bedroom, how much am I going to pay? And they tell him, you're going to pay the same price you were paying in your 1-bedroom. And in that moment, he realized what God was doing. God was really strengthening him and his wife, their faith, to really trust in him and to really trust in God to provide for them, even when things don't seem like they're going well or whatever. So he was just telling us in the crowd that place your faith in God, trust God, trust God, trust God. Okay, that's where he stopped. Another woman came up on stage and she talked about her faith story of how she was believing God for a child for 10 years. And that it got to a point where she kind of gave up on the promise that she believed that God would give her a child. She had miscarriages, and it just got so depressing for her when people would ask her, like, hey, you still want a child? She was like, And then she said God told her that you stopped believing. You stopped having faith. And then that's when she came to the conclusion, like, whatever happens, whether she has a child or not, when she stands before God, She wants to stand before God knowing that she believes to the end. And she was just talking about how we should always put our trust in God, that God will never disappoint. Now, mind you, at this time, she still didn't have a baby, right? But she was talking about how we should put our trust in God. She's like, there's some of you, you're going through a season in your life right now. Yeah, I just started crying. You're going through a season in your life where nothing makes sense and everything. And I was like, oh my God. She's like, coming to the altar. So they did an altar call for everyone who are going through stuff, believing God for stuff, and things are just looking not like what it should look. They were praying over us, and I remember just being so ignited and so encouraged with that prayer. Service ended. As service ended, I'm walking back to my car, and I remember telling myself, I'm staying in Atlanta. I'm staying in Atlanta. I don't care what happens. If I have to sleep on Ruth's couch in order to stay in Atlanta, that's what I'm doing. And that is exactly what I said to myself, y'all. That's exactly what I said. And I'm gonna stop the episode right here. Next episode, I'm going to talk about what happened the rest of that day, December 15, and the rest of the month of December. If you like the likely story,